Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video we have the 1 in 43 scale Land Rover Series 1 pickup truck. This is manufactured by Airfix and is designed as a starter set, which means it comes included with some glue, a paintbrush and 4 paints. So I'm going to get this box opened up and take a look for myself. With this being a starter set, it's aimed at the younger age group, in this case ages 8 and up. We have plenty of paperwork, which is a good sign. And first up is a beginner's guide to help prep and build the model. This also includes advice on painting and applying decals. Next up we have the assembly instructions, which also has information and stats on the actual vehicle itself. The actual instruction comes on 4 pages and there are 26 steps to follow in total. I've neatly laid out all the other pieces to make assembly a little bit easier. And with that said, let's get cracking. So I start off by removing a lot of the excess support material. This will save me time later on. Starting at step 1, I remove and clean up the parts that I need first. I'm going to try and only use what's supplied with this kit, and that includes the limited set of paints. I didn't realise at first, but the exterior of this vehicle was intended to be paint free, and just rely purely on the colour of the plastic. I'm not sure how I feel about that, but I'm going to go with it for now. But at least the interior pieces are colour coded and require painting. Although the blue-grey covers very well, the paler colour does not, and I ended up having to add several coats just to get an even coverage. Plus the painting guide isn't very exact on where the paint needs to be applied, which is naturally going to lead to some guesswork. I've applied some of the model cement around the windows, but since it comes out in large dollops, I'm using an old brush to brush it in and thin it out. And this should help prevent any overspill when the window is pushed into place. Next I glue into place the tops of the seats, and then that can be added to the chassis of the truck. It's just a matter of making sure all the contact points are firmly connected, that way we don't leave any gaps. And now the seat cushions and the flooring can be slotted into place, and now it's starting to resemble the inside of a truck. Now moving on to the front bumper, the headlights are slotted in through the back, and they come out like so. I then built up the bonnet and then glued both parts together. Now I think the colour guide is telling me to only add some paint on the footwell, but once again I'm taking a guess as the instructions are not that clear. And while I'm waiting for that paint to dry, I also paint the steering wheel in black, and I also paint the wipers, which are moulded onto the windscreen. And here's how the dashboard looks when it's completed. Plus I've also added the decals. Not that they'll be very noticeable, as you'll have to look through the window to see inside. The next step is to glue that piece to the bonnet, and this kit does by and large stick together very well. And now that attaches to the front of the chassis, therefore completing the interior of the cab. There's a couple of panels which need painting on the interior of the doors. Once again they'll be hard to see on the finished model, so they don't need to be perfect. And then I can glue on the windows and repeat the same process for the opposite side. And once those have had time to set, I can add glue on all the contact points, and that way I can get both sides stuck on. Because a lot of these parts were stuck on separately, it meant that the alignment was out slightly in different places, so everything kinda had to be forced together until the glue can set. And a good way to do that is by wrapping rubber bands around everything, and this will help to keep the pressure on until the glue can set. Because now everything's been forced into alignment, the roof piece can go on without any issues. Plus this will also add additional strength to the joint. And while I'm waiting for the glue to set, I can start putting on some paint for the next pieces. And this is the trick to model making. While you're waiting for one thing to dry or set, you can start prepping something else, and that way you make the most of your time. Next I can glue on the rear end, and I have a few things to paint underneath the truck. There is a colour guide of what should be painted which colour, but since the coverage on some of these paints is quite poor, I'm only going to be painting selected areas. As this truck is not going to be turned upside down very often, it's not essential. There are still quite a few components to paint and add underneath, and a lot of these relate to steering and suspension. So bit by bit, I paint them up, build them up, and stick them down. And before too long, it's starting to look like the underside of the real thing. Pretty soon All that there's left to do are the wheels. We have 5 altogether, which include the spare, and they each come in 2 halves and then require painting. Next up is to apply the remaining decals. There's the front and rear number plate, and that's also followed by a pair of Land Rover badges. I did eventually realise that the remaining colour guide was on the rear of the box, and this prominently features the exterior of the truck. Because I'm not so keen on the paint applied, I'm going to skip the painting process and move on to the dry brushing and the washers. So I gave it an all over dry brush with some light grey, and this created some sun damage. And then for the washers I used a mixture of green, brown and black, and I applied this to where dirt would normally accumulate, and that also includes the underneath of the vehicle, plus any excess is dabbed away with a tissue. I also apply the same process to the wheels, and once those are dried I glue them into place, and then the spare one goes on the bonnet. So that's the 1 in 43 scale Land Rover Series 1 pickup completed. Overall it's not a bad kit, but I do wish there was more consistency with the colour guide, because ideally the parts should be painted before assembly, and this kit only gives you those options on selected parts. And I did also try to use only the materials supplied within this box, as it's essentially a starter kit, and I did mostly achieve that, but I did feel very uncomfortable not applying a primer before painting. But the supplied paint may be more robust, only time will tell. But what I will say is this: when it comes to building these kits in the future, I'll probably stick to my own paints and my own methods. But I'll be interested to hear your thoughts. Do you use any of the paint, brushes or glues applied with these kits? And if so, what do you think of the quality? Thank you for watching. Don't forget, if I can do it, so can you.